Fred Costello, president of Lemoyne College in Syracuse, New York, for being here today. Thank you, Matt Boren, from the University of Nebraska. We thank you for being here with us today to share your story. We're at a decision point about the kind of America we want to be. Everyone agrees that we need to get our fiscal house in order, reduce the deficit, and cut programs that do not work. I believe our choice is clear, and I know my colleague, Mr. Miller, believes that as well. We should start by ending $40 billion in oil company subsidies that we give out every year. We think it's time to stop paying billions in subsidies to agribusinesses, billions in tax breaks for the wealthy, and billions in loopholes for corporations who ship our jobs overseas. But the House majority, Republicans, are making a different choice. They're continuing their support of these subsidies and tax giveaways in their budget. Instead, they choose to slash Pell Grant by $5.7 billion in this year's budget. Their plan is more money for oil companies, more money to continue corporate wasteful spending, and less financial support for the students who are here today who need to go to college and who want to go to college. Pell Grants are the foundation of our student aid system. Right now, Pells are helping more than 9 million people go to college. In fact, the number of students receiving Pell aid has increased by 3 million since 2008 when the recession hit. That's because people who've lost their incomes, they're going back to college to acquire new skills for when the economy recovers. And that's what we want them to do, to take advantage of the opportunity to retool their skills for the jobs of the 21st century. Nonetheless, the majority is attempting to roll the aid back. Their budget proposal cuts the Pell Grant by $845 for almost every student in the program. This will bring the percentage of college costs covered by Pell to its lowest level in 38 years. Only once in the history of Pell has the maximum award been cut, and that was by $100. This cut is not a one-time occurrence. The 2012 budget, just released by Republican Congressman Paul Ryan on Monday, also calls for rolling back each Pell Grant by hundreds of dollars. In fact, it proposes to slash $80 billion out of education and health accounts. At a community college in my district, I met with several students in the past weeks. They're working to obtain new skills for those jobs of the future. They were all ages, from 18 to 55. Many of them told me that Pell Grants were making the difference for them. And if they lost even $100 out of the grant, their education and their chances for improving their employment prospects would be put at risk. These students are trying to take their future in their own hands, and for good reason. According to the U.S. Census, the average college graduate makes almost $22,000 more a year than the average worker with only a high school degree. Over the course of a lifetime, that adds up to close to $1 million in earnings. That's a huge difference for people, so we should be encouraging students to be responsible, work towards a college education. And yet, some Republicans have actually called Pell Grants, and I quote, the welfare of the 21st century. Can you imagine? Some of my colleagues in the majority are going as far as characterizing providing college assistance as welfare. Oil company subsidies when gas is more than $4 a gallon? No. Corporate giveaways when billion-dollar companies like GE do not pay a penny in taxes? No. That's not fair. In my view, these are the wrong choices for our country. Let me just quote to you a member of Congress who had a clear vision, and that was Senator Claiborne. He knew the importance of education to maintaining American prosperity. He said, and I quote, "The strength of the United States is not the gold at Fort Knox or the weapons of mass destruction that we have, but the sum total of the education and character of our people." That is what is at stake here, the strength of our nation. We do not hear China or other international competitors saying, "Oh, we're spending too much on higher education. We need to cut back." Neither should we. We should find a way to keep our commitment to Pell strong so that millions of students can continue to take their future in their own hands. I thank you, and I'd like to introduce to you my friend and my colleague, George Miller. Let me just say, George Miller is this legislation. So many of the great changes that have been made in higher education have come at his hand. You all should know someone who has worked a lifetime make sure that young people have an opportunity to realize their dreams and aspirations. It gives me great pride to introduce to you the gentleman from California, Mr. George Bush.
Rosa, thank you so very much. There are those, and I think they accurately say that sometimes change is easy, the hard part is holding on to it. And Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, every day in that Appropriations Committee, is engaged in a battle for the heart and soul of this country and our value system, which is to promote the opportunities for young people to go to college, to receive an education that will serve them the rest of their lives, and no matter what occupations, what line of work they choose to go for. And right now, we know that this is hand-to-hand combat in the Appropriations Committee with the new budget that has now been submitted by the Republicans that threatens all of the improvements that we made in increasing the access to college, increasing the affordability of college, and increasing the ability to manage that cost of college. And the cost of college is very, very important to American families as they figure out how to do it. We made a choice. We made a choice on values in 2006. We could continue to provide incredible subsidies to the largest banks in this country to lend the government's money to students, or we could get rid of the middleman and we could reduce the cost of college and the cost of loans and increase the Pell Grant to that very same population, to families and students who were struggling to pay for college. And what we did was we increased the maximum Pell Grant, and we indexed it for inflation to make sure that it would stay current with the increased costs in our society. We also reduced the interest rates on loans to make them more accessible to families that were struggling with this. And when you took the loan, we also made it easier for students as they graduated and they started in careers, perhaps not with the highest salary at the beginning, but a very good career over time. They could manage their loans with the income-based repayment system, so they would not pay more than 15% of their discretionary income to their student loans, so they could start a life outside of repaying student loans. And then if you engage in you entered into a profession of public service, a police, fire, doctor, nurse, librarian, or you worked for a nonprofit, you went to the Peace Corps, if you spent 10 years there, your loans would go away. We would have loan forgiveness, so that we would not burden a whole generation of people with the cost. Now we're confronted with another value choice. Now we're confronted with a very serious value choice. They have chosen, as Rosa DeLauro has just said, they have chosen to continue the subsidies to the largest oil companies in the country rather than have them help pay for the deficit. They decided they're going to continue the subsidies for those who would send jobs overseas rather than have them help pay the cost of the deficit. But who are they going to charge? They're going to charge the most vulnerable of families and students who are seeking an education, who became qualified to go to college, to participate in the higher education system of this country, to benefit by it, and they're attacking the foundation of this system of financing higher education in this country by attacking the Pell Grant program. The Pell Grant program is a means by which many families and students, as they plot out how they're going to navigate the higher education system, can avoid to a great extent the loan system. So they're not saddled with a huge amount of debt. They can take advantage of community colleges. They can take advantage of the ability to transfer to a four-year institute. They can take the advantage if they go into debt, perhaps for an advanced degree. That's now threatened because they've decided they're going to attack the foundation of all this, and that's the Pell Grant that opens the door at the very beginning for so many families and so many students as they consider, how do I finance my higher education? Those are not the values of America. We value education. We value people who struggle to get themselves in a position to take advantage of higher education. We don't value pulling the rug out from underneath those students. We don't value pulling the rug out from underneath those families that are struggling to support their students in higher education. And we do value that everybody should pay their fair share in helping this country reduce the deficit. That includes oil companies, and that includes multinational corporations that send jobs out of America. So those are the choices that we're confronted with. Those are the choices that Congresswoman DeLauro is confronted with in the Appropriations Committee as we consider the Republican budget. But it's devastating. It's devastating to the future of our economy, the future of our place in the world, if we're going to start now once again reducing access and increasing costs to colleges. But That's what the Republican budget does. I want to take the opportunity to introduce Dr. Fred Postello, who is the president of Lemoyne College in Syracuse, New York, a position that he's held since 2008, and he came to Lemoyne from the University of Dayton. And I want to thank him so much for joining us and speaking on behalf of many in the higher education community who've come to recognize the threat that this is to the well-being of their student populations and those who aspire to earn a college degree in America today. Thank you and welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressman Miller, and thank you, Congresswoman DeLauro. Thank you for inviting me here today to talk about the Pell Grant Program, the foundation program for federal student aid. We greatly appreciate your advocacy on behalf of over 9 million Pell recipients, and I'm particularly honored to be joining in those offering remarks this afternoon. I'm Fred Postello, president of Lemoyne College, a Jesuit college in Syracuse, New York, and I'm here today representing the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities, the Student Aid Alliance, and in spirit, I am representing college and university presidents across the country. They share my concerns. We oppose House Budget Resolution for FY12, which was passed by the Budget Committee last evening. While we certainly understand the need to balance the budget and to make tough choices for our nation's economic health, cutting student aid will reverse years of progress we have achieved in encouraging and enabling America's students to pursue college and the American dream. Budget cutting decisions should be smart ones, based on solid policy. Cutting the Pell Grant by at least $1,000 or more will take us back to 2008 levels or earlier. This impact is dramatic. It will stop students applying to college. It will prevent students from attending college. Students will not finish their degrees. It sends a very stark message to our young people, to our high school students. There may not be the opportunity for them, the sorts of values and opportunities this country was founded on. That would be a tragedy. The Pell Grant Program, founded in 1972, has served tens of millions of students who have successfully completed graduate and postgraduate degrees because of assistance from the federal government. It was this contract with America that is now being broken. We call on Congress to do the right thing and to maintain the funds in that program. At Lemoyne College, in line with our Jesuit mission to serve the less fortunate, over 40% of our students are Pell Grant recipients. 40%. We received $3.5 million for these students from the federal government. A cut of this magnitude would severely impact our college and those students who attend it. Our nation deserves the commitment by the federal government to maintain this program. It has been a huge success. It provides the means for students to pursue a wide range of educational opportunities, including in science, technology, engineering, and math. This continues to help make our country so competitive globally. It would be a travesty if these huge cuts prevail. Congress needs the direction and the courage to do the right thing, to support future generations. Pell Grants are our nation's foundation for a better tomorrow. We strongly urge Congress not to balance the budget on the backs of our nation's students. Our country's prosperity, our country's security, our country's democracy is dependent upon a well-educated citizenry. Congress should want and support a stronger America. Thank you.
Thank you. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce to you. I would say that Dr. Lemoyne and Congressman Miller and myself are no longer in school, but if I were to take a look back, and I think this is accurate, and I'm sure it is, that we had folks who sacrificed as hard as they could, and we would not have been able to go to school without the opportunity for financial assistance. That's what it was about. We're probably sons and daughters of immigrant families who struggled to get to get us to school. We had our opportunity, we had our chance so that we could have our dreams and our aspirations. It's now Matt Boren's time. University of Nebraska, this is someone who will tell his story about what the relevance is of the Pell Grant to him and his future. Matt?
Thank you very much. Firstly, I would be remiss if I did not first thank Congresswoman DeLauro for her incredible leadership on this issue, as well as her continued support for student paths to higher education. What I would like to do with you today is just to briefly share the profound impact that the Pell Grant program has made in my life, for my fellow students at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and for students across the country. As a student at the University of Nebraska, I have been fortunate to attend an excellent college at a land-grant research institution. I'm also committed to a career in public service and was fortunate to be designated a Truman Scholar last year by the Harry Truman Foundation. I intend to pursue a career in public service, and I think many of my fellow Americans and fellow students throughout the country plan to pursue similar careers in public service, giving back to the country that gives them Pell Grants, giving back to the citizens who help to finance them attending college, and making a profound economic impact. Pell Grants played a major role in my ability to attend college after graduating high school. Without this financial support, attending a four-year institution would have been quite simply not an option for me. In our increasingly competitive global economy, I believe that employers are seeking students who can think critically, solve problems collaboratively, and communicate effectively. And at a time when our country is trying to stabilize our economy, it seems remiss to me that we would try and be cutting Pell Grants, one of the very foundations that finances student development and quite frankly, the economic security and prosperity of our nation. Some states have already taken steps to protect students' interests and abilities to attend higher education institutions, but the federal government needs to provide comprehensive leadership by maintaining the current funding level for Pell Grants. Even a slight reduction in Pell Grants would have profound impacts on not only myself, but my fellow students at the University of Nebraska, where almost 25% of all the students at our college receive some kind of Pell Grant funding. I'm lucky that the state of Nebraska is one of the few states that is running the path to college for students through programs such as College Bound Nebraska, which provides matching funds for students who receive Pell Grants, by in which if you receive any Pell Grant funding, the University of Nebraska will effectively write off the rest of the cost of tuition because we feel that education is that important. With the mobilization of students currently occurring by the United States Students Association and the long-term positive impact of Pell Grants on our country, I would challenge all of our federal representatives to maintain the current level of Pell Grant funding to support all students, our economy, and the future of our great nation. Thanks.
Thank you. Very good.
Questions?
Any questions?
Thank you first for holding the press conference and bringing the issue. My question is about Pell Grants and policies that affect Pell Grant funding. Your colleagues on the Hill particularly talk about the growth of the Pell Grant program. If you look at what's driving the growth of the Pell Grant program, proportionally, it's for profits. When you look at completion rates, when you look at debt burdens, if we're talking really about how to contain the cost of Pell Grants and be able to maximize the efficiency of that program, shouldn't we also be talking about how to regulate those so that you're not wasting Pell Grant funding and you're sending it on to students and institutions that are actually going to generate jobs?
Well, we're actually looking at that, but the fact of the matter is we know that over 1.5 million students showed up last year and the year before that we had never seen before. Many of them came back because they'd lost their jobs, they're looking for additional skills, they're coming to get new training. They're returning to college for a number of different reasons. They also are not bringing a lot of income because of the economy, and so in some areas you see that the community college systems, if you will, in various states is stretched to its limits. They're turning people away, so people have decided to take what their Pell allowance is and to go to the for-profit sector because time is their concern, and so if they were able to get into the classes or not. I share some concerns about how much we're paying per unit and the use of these resources, but I don't think you should lose your focus. And a lot of the increase in Pell also is because there's many more families and individuals that are eligible because of the economic downturns as a result of the Wall Street scandals. The growth in the for-profits is there. They are arguing that they're meeting the need, and in many areas of the country, in some areas in my own state, it's hard to argue that fact because the systems are essentially closed. And now we're seeing that they're talking about foreclosing the opportunity of tens of thousands of students in the four-year system and in the community college system because of budget problems in our state, and other states are going through some of that at the same time.
The only thing I would add in that respect, because Congressman Miller is absolutely right, the increase has been largely attributed to people who are taking advantage of the opportunity given the recession, and those who are going back to school because they may have lost a job, which is what that program is there for. But also, I would just say that Congressman Miller's committee and others have been engaged in looking at the whole issue of gainful employment and making sure that where this money goes in terms of for-profit colleges, that we have the outcome that we are that is what is hoped for, is that there is a degree or a certificate, etc. It's also interesting to note with that not only are some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle wanting to cut the Pell Grant program by $845, but they all also are not willing to take a look at what is happening at some of these for-profit institutions so that we can move away from waste, fraud, or abuse of the system. So they want to cut Pell, but they don't want to look to these places where we could save some of that money.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thanks very, very much, and thank you all very, very much. It was beautiful. Thank you. The weather